On today's show, what are the Washington Wizards' biggest needs ahead of the NBA draft? What should they do with that number 2 overall pick? Is it best to keep the pick? And which prospect makes the most sense for Washington if that's the case? Or possibly trading the pick? It's all coming up on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. Because LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the absolute best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals that you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all of that while making the process easy and intuitive. Because LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or the resources for hiring. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process even easier. They just launched a feature that actually helps you write job descriptions. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Wizards, Brandon Scott, who you can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Wizards. Here, as we are right around the corner from the NBA draft, where the Wizards hold the number 2 overall pick and a couple others a little bit later on in the draft proceedings. So let's start right here, Brandon. What are the Wizards' kind of biggest needs, biggest roster needs ahead of the NBA draft, and how should those needs kind of play into what they ultimately do with the number 2 overall pick?
Oh, good question, man. Looking at needs for the right now and in the long-term future, you're looking at point guard, you're looking at center, and eventually you're looking at power forward because eventually you're going to have to trade Kyle Kuzma at some point. So you need a guy at the power forward position that can fill that slot long-term. So that's kind of where we're at. Under Will Dawkins with head coach Brian Keefe, they like versatility. So we're going to be looking at guys who could play multiple positions, So looking at this draft, there's a lot of guys who can do that. So
yeah, I mean, it feels like it's kind of one of those rough, draw the cards things where you Wizards jump up, they get the number 2. Well, they get the number 2 overall pick in a draft that's widely regarded as kind of a weaker draft, an eye of the beholder draft, if you will. So kind of, with so many rumors swirling about what the Hawks may do at number 1, the Wizards at number 2, hell, the Rockets at number 3. I mean, it kind of feels like, we don't know what any of these teams are leaning towards doing. But as it stands right now, does it feel like the Wizards are leaning towards keeping that pick and making the selection at number 2, or kind of open to trading the pick either by trading down in the draft and recouping, an additional asset or 2, or by trading out of the draft completely?
Number 2, for right now, the front office has shown that they're going to stand pat. Now, I can see them trading back into the lottery and packaging a player like Kyle Kuzma with our 26th overall pick and maybe going back into the lottery because, like you said, a lot of people are down on this draft. And if you're a contending team, yeah, you're trying to flip that pick because you need a guy who's going to come in and immediately, provide starting minutes. Where this is the highly developmental draft. Where if you're a team like the Wizards, where you're in year 2 of a rebuild, you like a draft like this because, scouting department's revamped. You got a head coach who has shown that he can develop young talent. So this is perfect for the Wizards. So I could see them trade back. If you didn't see the news, right now there's talks, obviously, with Atlanta trying to get the 4th and 8th pick from San Antonio. That would be something I would love to see the Wizards do because, again, I would love to come out of this draft with 3 to 4 young prospects.
Well, ultimately, Atlanta kind of holds all the cards right now with what they ultimately decide to do with that number 1 overall pick, whether they keep it and draft somebody number 1, or if they do, a trade down scenario like you just alluded to, the rumors about potentially trading with San Antonio for 4 and 8. Who are you hoping is on the board, at least when it comes time for the Wizards to make their selection with the number 2 overall pick, assuming they keep that pick?
Oh, Alex Sarr, easy. I mean, a 7-footer who's very versatile. He's very, very swift on his feet. The offense is, high potential with all his offensive side of the ball, but he's raw. He's going to need development, but his offensive side is just oozing with potential. And with him being a rim protector, a 7-footer, we need a guy who's going to rim protect. Our biggest issues this previous season was rebounding and interior defense. Well, defense overall, but interior defense. So Alex Sarr is definitely a guy that I like because, again, at 7 foot, he can play center. But, his comp is Jaren Jackson Jr. from the Memphis Grizzlies. So, a lot of people see him at the 4. And with our previous second round pick last year in Tristan Vucevic, and hopefully we grab another 7-footer for the center of the future. Looking at a lineup in 2 years where at the 4 and the 5, you could potentially have two guys at 7 feet who can stretch the floor and rim protect. I mean, he's looking really good for the Wizards long term.
In your eyes, is Alex Sarr the type of prospect that you would like to maybe see the Wizards potentially move up and orchestrate a type of trade potentially with the Hawks? Maybe, if that deal with, the rumored reported deal falls through with the San Antonio Spurs, rather than kind of letting the Hawks kind of play chicken with that number 1 overall pick. It's all a big kind of bluffing game. Who has the trade negotiation leverage, who doesn't, all that stuff. But could you see a world where Alex Sarr would be worth giving up a future protected first round pick or something to move up that one spot and guarantee that you can grab him at number 1?
No, I don't see that as happening because, this front office, they're very reluctant on parting ways with any future draft assets. I mean, if they make a trade, it's going to be for a, expiring contract or a veteran guy on a team-friendly deal like Kyle Kuzma. Because Jordan Poole right now, his value is very low right now. So Kyle Kuzma is that guy who's the most tradable asset. So I wouldn't see them trade up to number 1. I think they're going to go with whatever way the Atlanta goes. If they go with Sarr, Resaw Shay's an option, but I look more of them probably picking up Donovan Clingan because at 7'3" and 280 pounds, we need a center, a franchise center who he's got the NBA body, 280 pounds. You can be able to handle a lot of the centers in this league, and his offensive side is still developing, but he's shown the willingness to add that 3-point shot and add that mid-range. And he's already shown that he can play with his back to the basket. So Dominic Clingan would be my guy if we don't get Alex Sarr.
I know that there was some, a little bit of reporting, some rumors out there that there might even be a possibility of Alex Sarr sliding to number 3 for the Houston Rockets. And I was like, man, sign me up for that. I'm all over that if that happens. I can't imagine a world where Alex Sarr slides past number 2. If he's there, I think he's more than likely to pick for the Wizards. But we did talk about the idea of maybe the Wizards potentially trading back down in this current draft. Are there any reports, any rumors about some potential deals that the Wizards have maybe had discussions or other teams that they'd be looking at, entertaining a trade down scenario with?
I haven't heard much from the organization as of yet of trading back or even trading back into the lottery, but I will say this. You know, they this new front office is very crafty. And they shown last year that they can find value and find these diamonds in the rough, picking up Bilal Coulibaly, picking up Tristan Vucevic in the second round. So they're looking at every possible outcome in this draft because again, a lot of people are low in this draft, but this is a perfect developmental draft. And like I said, development in DC hasn't always been a big concept, right? We struggled in the draft year after year, but now with a new front office of Will Dawkins, Michael Winger, and Travis Schlenk, in a new revamped scouting department, there's a lot of confidence as far as not only scouting talent, but developing talent, especially when, the new head coach, Brian Keefe, is known for his development, where he's getting kudos for players like KD and SGA. So it says a lot about what the direction is. So I could definitely see them trading back into the lottery. But, like I said before, I don't see them moving up to 1, but I could definitely see them potentially moving up in the lottery because like I said, Kyle Kuzma is a very tradable asset. His contract is team friendly, not only for the Wizards, but for any team that might want to add a scorer and not break the bank to do so. So, Detroit, I wouldn't totally dismiss that because he's from nearby Flint, Michigan. That as an option, but I look more so of number 13 in Sacramento. I see it as a perfect landing spot for Kyle Kuzma. Maybe for us also to pick up not only the 13th pick, but maybe a young guard in Davion Mitchell and inspiring contract in Trey Lyles. Miami at 15 is intriguing. I know that Memphis at number 9, they needed another piece to kind of win now. So those are a couple picks that I would look forward to. Like if they make the decision to trade back in the lottery, I would definitely keep your eye on number 9 and number 13.
A lot of different possibilities for the future for Kyle Kuzma, maybe a little bit less so for Jordan Poole. What do you think the future kind of holds for him? Because as you already alluded to, right, the Kuzma contract situation, right, he's on a team-friendly deal. It's actually, it decreases in value over these next 3 seasons, so it's a super team-friendly contract, relative to his production for whatever team potentially picks him up. Jordan Poole, a little bit less so. That contract maybe one of the worst in the NBA right now. Does it feel like there's a pressing need for the Wizards to move on from Jordan Poole, or is it kind of one of those situations where, hey, you're just going to need, I guess, a pseudo tank commander, if you will, for these next couple seasons while the Wizards are in kind of development rebuild mode?
Well, it's kind of a gray area with Jordan Poole because number one, I mean, he's still young. He hasn't even hit his prime yet, and he's shown that he played at a high level in the NBA. So, I was like a lot of Wizards fans and people in the organization. They were very excited when they acquired him from Golden State because he's shown that he can score. Now, long-term outcome in DC is probably a point guard because we were number 1 in pace. So we need an offense that's going to go fast. And Tyus Jones was a perfect floor general, but Jordan Poole with the ball in his hands, I think looked really good with a fast offense. But the other flip side of the coin is, yeah, it behooves the Wizards to get him right, because if he's not part of the long-term future, even if you look at the contract, he has no value right now. So, if you're pressed in getting rid of him, you're gonna have to attach a pick to get rid of him. But I'm one of those people that I think that he could be a long-term piece, because not only because of on the court performance, because look, in the first half of the season, he struggled and he got smoked from every major sports outlet in the country. And the fact that, Brian Keefe came in, interim head coach, changed some things, moved him to six man. And it showed that when he has the ball in his hands and he can dictate pace, he's shown that he good role in him as six man. And then when Tyus Jones went down and he became a starting point guard, the offense flowed better. It was faster transition. They were killing defense on transition. So, he's shown that the mental side, because, as we know, young players, confidence is a big thing with young players, especially if you look at our roster with Denny, he's a confidence player. And he's shown that he can take the heat. So he impressed me a lot with that. So I think he could be a long-term piece, but I also see the flip side of the coin. If he gets his value up, especially as a starter or a six man, because on a contending team, I see him more as a six man on a contending team. But if we bring that value up, he very well could be a trade piece, at the deadline or probably next year.
What will the Washington Wizards do in this year's NBA draft? Will they make a selection at pick number 2, or will they trade it? You're going to have us covered for all of that and so much more over at Locked On Wizards. Brandon, thanks for stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Yes, sir. Anytime.